Please welcome to the stage ACS Executive Vice President Zinelle October and Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson.
This is such an exciting day for all of us for so many reasons, but we are really honored to have you here with us.
I'm honored to be here. Did y'all just get as inspired as I did?
Absolutely.
I'm fired up. Ready to switch careers.
All right. Well, I have a brief introduction of you, but I kind of feel like you don't need an introduction with this crowd, but we're still going to do it because, as Michelle Goodwin said, that's part of it. So let's go. I'll do it pretty quickly. Justin J. Pearson was first sworn in as District 86 State Representative in the Tennessee General Assembly on February 9, 2023. Representative Pearson is president and founder of Memphis Community Against Pollution and co-founder of Memphis Community Against the Pipeline, which is a Black-led environmental justice organization that successfully defeated a multi-billion-dollar company's crude oil pipeline that would have poisoned Mississippi. Memphis' drinking water and stolen land from the community. He's the co-lead and strategic advisor for the Poor People's Campaign National Call for Moral Revival. Representative Pearson was named to the Roots 2022 list of the most influential Black Americans, and Black Men Crowned named him it in 2021 Humanitarian of the Year. As we're all aware, he came to even greater national prominence after his protest against gun violence at the Tennessee State Capitol, alongside his colleagues, Gloria Johnson and Justin Jones, in March, which in a moment of stark political reprisal resulted in Representative Pearson's and Johnson's expulsion from the Tennessee House of Representatives. With all that background, we are so pleased to have you join us here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So my first question for you, and you feel free to just jump in whenever too. What we witnessed in Tennessee with your expulsion, as well as Representative Jones's, and in Montana with Representative Zephyr, censure, has been alarming. Is this a new normal? What do these actions say about the state of our democracy? And as my good friend Heidi Lee Feldman, an esteemed scholar, would ask, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, this is great questions. First, thank you, and thank you to this amazing group of people who have obviously committed yourself to the cause of justice. You went to school, a lot of y'all got a lot of debt, and then you still wake up every day and say, what is it that we can do to help make this country a little better, to be proximate? And that's what I think, Orrin, one of the things that I cherish is how do you get proximate to people who have been made poor? How do you get proximate to people who have been marginalized and oppressed in our communities? And then what happens when you, with pedigree and power, get proximate to those places and lift them and elevate their voices and their issues? Transformation happens. But there are people who aren't in this room who are hell-bent on ensuring that we who care about justice are silenced. There are people who wake up differently, without the desires innate in their heart and in their being about how do you lift those from the bottom? How do you bring those from the margin to the center of the conversation? There are those, and I serve with them in the Tennessee State House, who are much more concerned about oppression and how they can best oppress people. We passed, this past session, over 25 laws targeting the LGBTQIA community. One of those was saying that drag shows harm children. We didn't pass a single law saying AR-15s harm children. And so what's happening in Tennessee, and I always talk about the hope as well, about the thousands of people who are marching and protesting and galvanizing, mostly teenagers. But the reality is what's happened to myself and Representative Jones, Representative Zephyr, it is a part of this normal. but it is what happens when you have the erosion of democracy in a very gradual sense. And for anyone who is not concerned about the state of our democracy, you really should be. We are losing the ideal in place of people's mobocracy, where the mob rules. And it is happening in the South, it is happening in states run by supermajority Republican leadership, that their power is contingent upon the oppression of other people. Why is it that someone, Zoe, who's advocating for gender-affirming care gets censured? Why is it that the two youngest black lawmakers from the state of Tennessee advocating for the end of gun violence and the epidemic that is hurting our communities, mine personally in Nashville, as well at the Covenant School and so many of ours? Why is that a threat? It is a threat because it's a threat to the status quo. But we have an opportunity, an obligation, a responsibility for those of us who swear an oath to serve in public office, but for all of us who swear the invisible oath of caring about people and causes and communities, it is to sometimes sacrifice in order to have our belief systems, in order to have our voices and the voice of the people we care about to be heard. But I will tell you, we are in a dangerous moment in our state, in Tennessee. We're in a dangerous moment in our country. I just saw here in D.C., Republican members pulled expulsion papers for Representative Adam Schiff, that this is happening because you gerrymandered the districts to determine who was going to vote for you. Right? This happened because these state houses were bought out by the Koch brothers and so many other organizations that selected who would be state senators and state representatives. Y'all, we in trouble. But there's nothing more powerful than people power. There's nothing more powerful than people who advocate for change. There's nothing more powerful than us. And so I've still got hope.
So with that in mind, and this amazing progressive legal community that we have here, what's our path forward? Mm-hmm. How do we save our democracy? How do we address all these issues that you're fighting for?
Yeah, I mean, we fight together, and another amazing speaker said that, like, the unity of this community is really powerful. And I talked to Jen earlier and was doing the podcast, and you know, there are over 10,000 members of this community. A movement is not an individual. To build a movement requires the community connecting and operating together and in sync. See, right now, let's just take this real country. This is inside the house, right? We all family. Here, we determine our playbook for justice. Now, here is where you might disagree with what I say, and you might disagree with what they say, and we figure out what is it that we care about, what is it that we're going to fight about. And then when you walk past that exit sign, all of us are operating from the same book. People who have advocated for injustice have done that terribly well. It took 50 years for them to take Roe v. Wade. But they organized, marched, protested for 50 years to see a devastating day where women would not have the right and the agency over their bodies, but white men in suits in state houses would. We who are progressive, who do care about justice, who really do believe the things that we talk about, have to fight just as hard for the things we believe in as they are fighting. If they're bold enough to march for the Second Amendment, we got to be bold enough to march for the First Amendment, for the 14th Amendment. We have to have a boldness in the way that we operate because we are not just legally right and politically right, we are morally right. And the only way to win is to be organized. A beautiful scholar, she said, you know, Frederick Douglass was almost there when he said, power concedes nothing without demands. And she fixed it, and she said, power concedes nothing without organized demands. And so organization is very important for us to be successful in the long term. And so when I think about the environmental justice movement of which I have been a part, I think about our lawyers at Southern Environmental Law Center who are extraordinary. Shout out to my friends in Nashville at Vanderbilt. And I think about, we got a whole Tennessee contingent. Y'all made me so happy. I started seeing all the Tennessee people. I was like, we in here. The movement's alive. When you think about the fight to end gun violence, it is going to take our organization and our coordination. Because the Republican Party and people who are much more conservative, somehow they are in the most lucrative jobs. And they got a lot of money. And they wield that money against progressive causes, progressive people, progressive issues. But what happens when you have an immoral cause and you have a lot of money is you don't really go knock on doors and tell people. Right? It's not a good pitch. Hi. I'm so-and-so, and I'm here to take away your abortion rights. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I don't want there to be a living wage. It's not a good argument. But we have a strong argument that every person has dignity, that everybody has a right to clean air and clean water and clean soil, that everybody deserves to have a level of wages that doesn't require them to work 90 hours a week, that everybody is somebody, whether they are incarcerated inside of a prison or not. Everybody is worth our investments. To build this movement is to coordinate in states and outside of states, to use legal power, political power, and economic power toward the cause of justice. Which means some of y'all are going to get phone calls from me because there's legislation being passed that is transforming our lives. And if anyone doubts that your state legislatures are the front lines of democracy, I assure you, you do not understand government. I studied government, right? No, it's funny, but I'm being serious. I studied government in college, an American government in particular. I ran for office. It is worse than you think it is. And these state houses are dictating whether or not we have democracy. They are determining who has the ability to read certain books. It is in the state houses that our lives are being shaped and changed and transformed every single day. And I was just having a blast in Albany where people who look like me are in control and in power, and I loved it. But something about history is Democrats and progressive folk might not always be in a supermajority. And when that tide changes 100, 150 years from now, you have to think about the consequences that would have. I was told Democrats were in power 140 years in Tennessee. 2008 came, a black person became president. White people got very afraid. Other white people didn't check their white friends and their white colleagues and their white parents and grandparents, telling them they were racist. I'm looking at the white people in the room. Yeah, it's good to be progressive when you're here. Be progressive at Thanksgiving. But the Republican Party took control of the state house. They've had it since, and the pendulum has swung in a very devastating way. And many people have given up on the South. But I am here to tell you the litmus test for America's democracy is how far the South goes.
Couldn't agree more. At ACS, we've very much been talking about our work in the South, and as you see, we do have a strong presence with our chapters, which is very exciting. And not only in the South, but around the country, we've been encouraging our members and working with them. We are a nonpartisan C3 organization, but we do encourage them to run for office, whether it's for legislator, to judge, to school board, to all sorts of positions. As we have these law students and lawyers in the crowd, what do you tell them about running at a time like now?
Yeah. I hope I don't mess anyone's 501c3 status up. I'm very partisan, but I'm nonpartisan. I'm nonpartisan on stage. And the reality is, look, has anyone read Heather McGhee's The Sum of Us? Heather McGhee's The Sum of Us is an extraordinary book for anybody who believes in justice. Just like you read Just Mercy, go read Heather McGhee's The Sum of Us, because she says this, that for our society to have movements requires solidarity dividends. In fact, it requires people to choose to be proximate, as you all know, Brian Stevenson talks about often, with communities that are most marginalized and harmed. But when white people and black folk, when queer folk and straight folk, when poor people and rich people get together, and they work from this playbook of justice, the status quo has yet to find a way to break them. And every progressive movement in America's history has been led by the solidarity dividend. And so I don't have anything against Republicans or people who are conservative, right? Black people in the South are a little more conservative than black people in the North. I lived in Boston. It's a different type of people. The problem is that there are people who are willing to sacrifice others, their lives, their freedom, their liberty, for the profits of corporations, for their own pedigree and their privilege. And we, regardless of your race, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of all of those things, you must be willing to choose solidarity over everything. Because if we choose solidarity, right, with people we agree with and disagree with, it requires both of us to come to the table, realizing that it's not a zero-sum game. Our success is not zero-sum. Freeing people from institutions of incarceration does not hurt your ability to be free. And we've got to talk about this. We've got to work towards this, as each of you are doing in your respective chapters. And we have to force this narrative to be the narrative that folks talk about. And now to your question. I'm a community organizer, but I'm learning the politician thing. Ask the question you want to answer first that wasn't asked. Look, run for office. Run anyway. This is my phrase. This is my favorite person. She keeps standing up. I'm going to give you a standing ovation when I leave here. I'm usually that person in the crowd, so it's kind of fun being up here. Run anyway. I don't have money and connections. Run anyway. I don't write too good or talk too good. Run anyway. Because your heart is what matters. Because the issues that are at stake in the United States of America and in these states across this country are too important for anybody to be on the bench unless you're a judge. And run for that too.
I want to turn a little to what informs your advocacy and ask about, you spoke on the House floor about, in the wake of the tragedy at Covenant School, and gun violence is something very personal to you. Can you speak about that and your friend Larry Thorne and how this informs your advocacy?
I appreciate that. Larry and I graduated Mitchell High School together 10 years ago. And at the same time we were winning our election on January 10th of this year, Larry was killed because of gun violence. And I talk to his mom every other day. We're still trying to find out what happened, who did it, and all those things. Excuse me. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for somebody to be getting elected to state office and another somebody, a friend of mine, I'm paying for his funeral. This can't be freedom. This cannot be justice. This ain't right. And for me, like, my faith in God informs a whole lot about what I believe about justice. Because I practice the Christian faith, not the one that worships white supremacy. Come on, Cheryl, come on. The real, yeah, exactly, hello, yeah. My Jesus was a Jew and brown-skinned, not blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I don't think I'm gonna lose any friends here, but you can take that back home. Some people would stop being Christian if they knew it was black, but I digress. My faith is deeply important to me. My family is extremely important to me, and my community. These are the pillars that help to frame my understanding about life, because I have seen how God can move in my own story. My parents had children as teenagers. I have an amazing fiance. I wish she was here. She's going to be a lawyer. She's planning to go to Vanderbilt. She's studying for the LSAT. So if y'all pray for her, her LSAT score is going to be on fire. So send up a prayer for Oceanae Argilliam to get into law school and to do good on the LSAT. There you go. She said everybody be telling her that. And she's like, no, I'm doing it anyway. I'm like, all right, I'm going to support you. But these pillars of my faith and of my family and of my community help to understand my advocacy, because I remain proximate to the people from where I've come. And one thing I learned every time I used to leave to go to college, I could go to a grocery store, my great aunt's house, anywhere. They would say, oh, what you doing? I'm like, I'm going to school, going off school. And they would just say, okay, don't forget where you come from. Everybody. And it was loving, it was sincere, but they were serious, right? Don't forget the people who've made you who you are. Don't forget your grandmothers, Gwen and Pearson, both unfortunately who died from cancer because of pollution in our communities. Don't forget the people who've gotten you here. And it was at Mitchell High School where I gave this first speech in my life to people in power, asking for textbooks. It was at that school where my classmates were some of the most supportive people I've ever met in my entire life, who helped build me into the person who's sitting here. It was at a poor inner city school in Memphis where Larry Thorne never had a bad word to say. Was loving and kind and gracious for all the years that I'm here. And so to lose Larry is for us to lose a part of our community. And these folks who say we don't need to do anything about gun violence and it's not an epidemic and all these other things, they're missing that our communities are being shattered. And it's important we talk about mass shootings that happened at the Covenant School. I wrote something in the Rolling Stone about it, right? Like, it's important that we talk about these mass shootings. But some of our communities experience everyday shootings, experience trauma every single day, and it is getting only attention at the top of the news hour to stoke fear, but it's not getting resources to fix the root causes of the problem. And so we need people in state legislatures, we need people on city councils and county commissions, at departments of corrections. Like, we need subject matter experts who aren't just living in ivory towers, but they're on social media, they're explaining to people the consequences of what's happening, and they're showing up at these meetings. It is extremely powerful when I can get 25 people from Boxtown or Westwood to show up at a council meeting, but imagine if 20 or 25 lawyers showed up. It does something different in a society that privileges pedigree. When lawyers and people who might otherwise not have to be there choose to be there and say, what happened to Larry Thorne, district attorney? What happened, police chief? Like, that is the power that we have to continuously wield. And so these issues are personal. And that is what helps me, and I think so many others of us, to persevere even beyond the pain and the persecution that we might suffer.
Thank you so much. So with the limited time we have left, I'd like to ask, what's our path forward from here then? To build in this multiracial democracy that we all want? What's our individual roles in this room? And how could you inspire us as we leave here today?
Yeah, well, I'm leaving inspired.
All right, me too.
Yeah, I'm leaving more hopeful. I'm leaving more courageous, because this room exists. And if more people knew about this room existing, they'd be terrified, petrified, horrified, because it is here in these spaces, in this community, in these connections, that the transformation that our country needs is happening. And it might not look like it or feel like it because you're just like, this is just one person I'm talking to. This is just two people I'm talking to. This is just one meeting, one gathering. But it's always in the meetings. It's always at church where organization is built, where infrastructure is developed, where ideas are debated, and where playbooks are written that we leave better than we came in. I don't have any fancy words of hope for you. But I'll tell you about my brief experience, and I'm the son of a teacher and a preacher, so the clock running down is hard for me. I had the opportunity to go across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with my brother one late night at the 57th anniversary, and it was just he and I, and we crossed the bridge together. It was my first time ever going there, and as we approached just the base of it, we just started clapping. And I don't know why he started, but I joined him, and we started clapping, and then we started to talk, and we started to speak about the ancestors and thank them. Thank you for marching before you knew our names. Thank you for giving yourself to be beaten and abused before you ever knew who we were. We just couldn't stop clapping, and then I couldn't stop crying. Thank you for all that you sacrificed in order for us to be here in this moment in time. And as we got down to the bottom, all I could remember and imagine is that they chose to continue to march, knowing that on the other side of this there would be violence, knowing that on the other side of this there would be some hurdles and some difficulties and some challenges. They still decided to keep taking one step in front of the other. And I think for us in this moment in American history, the ancestors and the unborn generations are asking us, will you take one step in front of the other? It will be difficult. There are people on the other side who do not want us to succeed. There are those who will write bills. There are those who will try to expel us. There are those who will try to even expel hope. And we have to decide, will we take one step in front of the other? Because unborn children are requiring and asking of us, will they be able to clap for you? Will they be able to clap for you? Will they be able to clap for you across your Edmund Pettus Bridge? And I'm confident they will.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.